Kepa Arrizabalaga is on his way to the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal are getting the world's most expensive goalkeeper for a £5 million fee. Sounds too good to be true, but it's not. And this came after Arsenal were heavily linked with Juan Garcia, but of course he's now going to Barcelona. And we were saying it would have been a very expensive second choice option, sort of 20, 25 million for Juan Garcia. They're now getting £5 million Kepa, who has got that Premier League experience. So, in your eyes, is this deal just a massive win for all parties and also a lot better than a deal for Juan Garcia would have been?
Yes, I think it's a really, really good, shrewd piece of business, I have to say. Look, I think Juan Garcia would have been a very exciting signing had that happened, but the price tag always made it feel a bit just sort of strange, almost like why are you spending that amount of money on a number two goalkeeper? And why would Juan Garcia want to come to be David Raya's understudy, given the season he's just had and the clubs that are interested in him? So, and you kind of felt like that might become an issue quite quickly for Garcia and the lack of minutes, and he didn't really want that. We had it with Ramsdale Raya, didn't we? We didn't really want that sort of starting up again. So I think the way Arsenal have pivoted so quickly to seemingly get this Kepa deal over the line. Obviously, we have to say it's not done yet, but looking like it is going to happen for £5 million. As you said, it seems mad that you're getting the world's most expensive goalkeeper for £5 million. And I know Kepa's had his issues since he arrived in England, and he struggled to deal with that price tag. And he certainly didn't sort of set the world on fire when he was at Chelsea. But I think since those early days, I think he's matured into a better goalkeeper. Now you saw what he did last season when he was on loan at Bournemouth. Fantastic season there, really, really good. And if people are complaining, and I have seen people complaining about this, you complain about this deal. I don't know what makes you happy in when it comes to transfers because it's just an absolute no-brainer. It is a no-brainer. £5 million for a keeper of that experience to come in and be number two, only 30. It just ticks so many boxes.
Yeah, a no-brainer, I think, is the best way to describe it. And like you said, he had that brilliant season at Bournemouth. I think if I remember correctly, he briefly displaced Edouard Mendy at Chelsea a couple of years ago. He did pretty well, but then of course didn't really kick on. Sanchez came in, Jorgensen came in. And we were saying a couple of weeks ago how thankfully David Raya didn't get injured last season. But if he did, from what we saw in that one Neto performance against Girona, we would not have had too much faith if Raya was out for a couple of months. How much more faith would you have? I mean, touch wood, Raya stays fit next season, but if something does happen, how much more confidence do you have in Arsenal with Kepa in goal as opposed to Neto or maybe Carl Hein?
Well, quite a bit. I mean, he showed last season at Bournemouth. He was very, very, he's more than adequate as a Premier League goalkeeper. So I wouldn't have too many issues with it. I think the key thing is going to be making sure he plays enough minutes because I think Neto was kind of unfairly judged on that one performance in the Champions League because he just hadn't played any football for so long. That it wasn't an ideal deal. I mean, you bring him in and he's cup tied for the Carabao Cup, which are basically the only games he was brought into play, and he's cup tied from that competition. It just makes it really difficult for him. And when he did finally get thrown in, it was his first game in like 6 months of playing. So I think it's key that Kepa does play quite a bit. Definitely gets the cup games, maybe get some early Champions League games as well, just to make sure he feels like part of the furniture at Arsenal. Sort of going back to the price tag and the deal itself, people have said, I, in terms of the criticism, I purely think it's down to the Chelsea connection, and that's it. People have said to me, imagine if you had a Bournemouth goalkeeper and you'd gone to Bournemouth and taken their first choice for £5 million, 30-year-old first choice for £5 million. Everyone will be hailing that deal, saying it's a fantastic piece of business. But just because he's not technically a Bournemouth player and he's a Chelsea player, I think that connection, that scar tissue Arsenal fans have got with some of the Chelsea deals that have happened in the past have kind of clouded their judgment on this one. I really think it's a good deal. And, in answer to your question, I'd have no issue with him coming in. I hope we don't see much of him. Then that's no slant against Kepa. I just don't want anything to happen to David Raya, and he's such a fantastic goalkeeper. But if something does, then I think Arsenal are pretty well set, or will be pretty well set with Kepa as the number two.
Yeah, what you were saying there about making sure he gets the minutes, I think David Ornstein was saying that he or James McNicholas that he really wants to push for that number one spot. I think we would be surprised if he did get it. But then there is I mean, not sure how long he's going to sign for. It sounds like it's going to be a long-term deal. But if he does say, have 1 or 2 years as a number two. That's quite a long time to be second choice for a keeper of his experience and his caliber. Is there, I mean, my main concern with this is that he realizes he's not going to become number one, then gets the itch to be number one somewhere else, pushes for a move away. Is that a concern of yours as well? Or maybe by the time that happens, could, say, someone like Tommy Setford be ready to take that next step?
Yeah, I think the Setford thing's a good point. And to be honest, number two's goalkeeper, there's always a lot of churn in that position anyway. It does happen because a lot of number twos, they don't really want to stay there for too long, and you want to play. So I think there's a lot of churn. Even you look around this summer, Liverpool, Kelleher's gone to Brentford. That's changing. Now he stuck around for a fair bit, but in the end, moves on. We've seen it at Manchester City. There's changing in the goalkeeping department there as well. Even Tottenham, I think Fraser Forster's gone somewhere. It's heading somewhere else. So it does happen. It just can't kind of comes with the territory of being a number two. I think at Arsenal we've seen too much churn in that position in recent years. So hopefully this does bring some stability. But even if he does just stay for a couple, maybe 3 years, I think the good thing is that you'll probably make your money back on him as well because you're only signing him for 5 million, and it does give time for someone like Tommy Setford, who Arsenal got big hopes for, to continue to develop and emerge and be ready to sort of step in. I think Tommy Setford will probably go on loan this season. I'll be surprised if he stays, and I think that'll be good for him. And then when he comes back, maybe he has another year, and then he'll be in contention to be that number two.
Yeah, and of course, Kepa, like I say, he's only 30 years old, which for a keeper is not old at all. But compared to, some of the younger keepers that Arsenal have in their ranks, the likes of Setford, Jack Porter, Nygaard, and Arsenal are losing quite a few experienced players this summer, of course. Neto's gone, Jorginho's gone, Partey could still go, Kieran Tierney's gone. So there are very few players who are 30 plus in the Arsenal ranks. I think it might only be, if Partey stays, then him, Kepa, maybe Trossard as well. So how important is this move off the pitch as well as on the pitch as well?
Yeah, I think he'll certainly add experience. I mean, he's a Champions League winner at the end of the day as well. Obviously, he didn't play in the final for Real Madrid, but he won the trophy while he was there. Um, and so yeah, I think he'll bring experience. You're right. I think Arsenal are losing quite a bit of that sort of leadership and experience in the dressing room this summer. And he will hopefully bring that. I've seen people again sort of question his personality or his character, sort of pointing to what happened, way back in 2019 in that Carabao Cup final. But I don't really sort of buy into that. I have to say he was young then. He was just over here with the weight of the sort of price tag hanging over him as a massive game. Suddenly being brought off. I think he obviously lost his head a little bit in that situation. But it was a long time ago. I don't really think that's anything to worry about now. I think he's matured, turned into a very good goalkeeper. He's shown he's an able understudy as well. He did that at Real Madrid when he went over there. He was a number two for a fair while at Chelsea without really kicking up too much of a fuss as well. So I think he'll come in, he'll add experience, add a little bit of leadership if that's what's needed. And yeah, I just think it's a really good signing all round.